You go to sleep on the 31st of December 2020 and wake up the next day, but when you check your phone, it says January 1st, 2020, after the first couple of days you realize it's just like Groundhog Day. What do you do with the information you have about 2020? Show my husband just how much I love him and appreciate him. Hug him longer, kiss him harder, squeeze his warm hands, laugh with him, record his voice, take more pics of him and of us together, not sweat the small stuff, be silly with him. Savor every meal he made me, stare into his eyes and marvel in their clarity and sparkle. Lay my head on his chest to hear his heartbeat every day. He died in May at age 31. I'd give anything to wake up tomorrow and see his bright blue eyes. Edit. Oh my goodness, I wrote this at about 3 a.m. and then went to sleep. I had no idea it was cause this much attention. Thank you to everyone who has commented, sent me well wishes and love, and thank you for all of the lovely awards. Not sure I deserve so much kindness, but I sure as hell appreciate it. He left our house walking, talking, and smiling back at me as he got into the ambulance, and less than 24 hours later I felt his heart stop under my hand. He was already sedated when I arrived at the hospital, so I'm not even sure he knew I was there, but I pray he did. No one deserves to think they are dying alone. He was the light of my life, my best friend, and I miss him more than even I can comprehend. Don't sweat the small stuff, folks. In the end, it rarely ever matters. Peace and love to you all. Turns out 2021 is just as bizarre and unprecedented as 2020, except it's all good things that keep happening. What are they? The discoverer of insulin, Frederick Banting, sold his patent to the University of Toronto for $1 because he thought it would save many lives. But the pharmaceutical companies made some minor changes and then patented that. That's why they can sell it for these exorbitant prices. Banting and his colleagues would be spinning in their graves today. Edit. I should have rather said incremental changes. As pointed out by a few comments below, a lot of effort has since been put to make insulin safer and effective. However, after Frederick Sanger discovered the structure of human insulin and thus enabling the manufacturing a synthetic version using modern methods, there are no excuses for the unfair pricing. P.S. Both Banting, 1923, and Sanger, 1958, won the Nobel Prize in Chemistry for their work on insulin. Therapists of Reddit, what was your biggest "I know I'm not supposed to judge you but holy sh*t moment? Once had a patient whose wife shook their baby to death. He wanted help reconnecting with his wife. At the time I was a young father of a newborn myself, and he triggered a lot of fear in me for my own child, a deep loathing of his spouse, and pity, the how pathetic kind, for the patient. I tried for 3 sessions, met his spouse and everything before handing the case over to my supervisor, who knew about my initial reactions, and tried to help me through it. Unfortunately, it ended up being more about my feelings than his, and I was new to the profession at the time. These things are expected to crop up from time to time, but I was still taken aback by my own reactions. If you could telepathically say something that all 7.8 billion people on Earth could hear at once, what would it be? People of Earth, your attention, please. This is Prostetnik Vogonjelts of the Galactic Hyperspace Planning Council. As you will no doubt be aware, the plans for development of the outlying regions of the galaxy require the building of a hyperspatial express route through your star system. And regrettably, your planet is one of those scheduled for demolition. The process will take slightly less than 2 of your Earth minutes. Thank you. People who are bothered by others wearing a mask while driving. Why do you care? I work for an agency that supports intellectually challenged adults. The residents work and we have to drive them to and from work. The agency provides a vehicle for each house, just a regular used vehicle with a regular license plate and no special markings whatsoever. We require the staff to wear masks when they're driving, even if they're alone, to cut down on contaminating the vehicle. One morning I was at the bank when the teller was chatting through the window while she waited for her computer to load my deposit. A car went by and she rolled her eyes about how paranoid some people are, driving around in their cars alone with masks on. I was like, actually, that was one of my staff. She just dropped her residents off at work and now she's driving the company vehicle back to the house. I'm glad to see someone finally followed my instructions. That computer spat out my deposit slip fast enough to cause whiplash and she went to the next window without another word. I was in the car with my boss just a few days later running a work errand and we passed a masked man alone in a car. She made a similar comment, that you have to wonder about people who drive around by themselves wearing masks in their cars. I just looked at her and raised an eyebrow. It took an embarrassing amount of time for that light bulb to come on. What will never be the same again once the pandemic is over? Working in an office, particularly in Japan. I live in Japan. Going to the office and spending all day here is a deep cultural tradition. Asking your manager at a traditional Japanese company to work from home regularly is on par with asking them, "Hey, I just realized I'm Dragon Keen. Can you please work with the cafeteria to put live cats on the menu?" You would get the same reaction. Even in cases of personal illness or family emergency. So many companies here, even in the early COVID days, flat out publicly said, no, we will never be doing that work from home thing, sorry. That's laughably naive. Then, the country issued a declaration of national urgency, not an actual emergency, as that would entitle the government to be actually accountable to the livelihoods of the people. Just a very strong-arm public stance and shaming businesses into following suit. Literally those same companies issuing the statements above were scrambling the next week to get their staff safely working from home, online, using remote meeting tools, etc. So, that was a big game changer. Still, everyone was thinking, once the urgency order is lifted, we'll all be going back to work as normal. Well, the urgency order lasted a few months. And those traditional Japanese businesses saw what happened to their bottom lines when they no longer had to pay for electricity, heating/AC, cleaning, office equipment and maintenance. Subsidized travel expenses to from work, soft items like coffee and snacks, etc. And so many of them now are singing the praises of a sensible work from home policy and planning for even long-term work from home options. Now the society is changing very rapidly to accommodate working from home. More people recently are less looking at buying their first house apartment in crowded Tokyo outskirts close suburbs, and looking more to buying 1 to 2 hours away in the boonies where land is actually affordable and living is better. It's watching a sociological essay study unfold, live, in slow motion.
And then she kissed my face, yeah. I'm falling.